Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hope y'all have a fantastic fucking day. And we are going to talk about something a little controversial on Join the Raid podcast. Today we have Mr. Savage, as always, the co host with the most, and our guest tonight, Jimmy.
Howdy.
Reason Jimmy is a guest on the podcast tonight because he actually lives in the state where we're going to be talking about and have his own personal perspective put it out there. Myself, Ritter, or Terry, whichever one you want to call me, we are going to have a talk about the LA riots and the protests across the United States. So it's going to be controversial. People are going to say they don't like doing politics, but guess what? This isn't just about politics. This is about real life. This is about what's happening and things that have happened before and it's happened in the past. And we kind of want to know about it, you know? So, yeah. So, Mr. Savage,
Yes, sir.
did you follow the LA riots?
Yes, I
Okay.
did.
What was your thoughts on it?
It's a mixed bag. Basically, everyone has their freedom to protest. Freedom of speech is part of it. You're able to do what you believe is right and to protest. But once it turns into a riot, then it's a completely different thing, and it's dangerous for a lot of different reasons. And it kind of got out of hand, especially from my point of view, at least, is when you're blocking. I think it's not good to be blocking traffic and causing, disturbance to people that are just trying to go to work every day in and out. And I get you trying to get a point across, but I don't think that's the way to do it. A lot of people could be losing their jobs. It could be ruining their whole life. You know, it's not good to be impeding on other people's life like that. Uh, when protesting, at least I get you want to get your point across, and there's plenty of ways to do that besides just blocking streets and such. The whole thing, I know bits and pieces about why they're protesting. Obviously, it's about, ICE and deporting illegal immigrants. And a few people, if I remember correctly, last time I counted, it was about 30 people that were legal citizens that did get deported um, in the mix. And, mistakes are made, and hopefully they are fixed because no one deserves to be deported, especially from a country that you are a legal citizen. But for the vast majority, like 98%, it's about deporting illegal immigrants. For the riots itself or the protests is basically they're trying to say that that shouldn't happen, that they should be allowed to stay. And so that's basically what I've summed up the riots to at this point.
Jimmy.
Yes, sir.
Uh, Also, everybody out there, if you can't hear Jimmy, let us know in the chat, please.
Yeah,
That way
I'll
we can
speak up
fix
if I
that.
have to.
It'll speak up if you guys do. Cool. Yeah, probably be a little louder because it's hard to hear you.
Valid.
Let's see here. Who has it up? You. Panda, I know you're in the YouTube chat. Can you hear Jimmy when he talks?
Test, test.
Or Texas, one or the other?
Can I be heard or no?
Buddy?
It is pulling up on the thing very quietly.
All right, let's go here. We're gonna go. Because in the edit, I can up your volume, so it's all good.
Oh, you can?
So, what is your standpoint on the LA riots?
It's just a lot of, I would say, because I think a lot of this is funded by others to create and into some sort of chaos, just so it's creating this divisiveness amongst people in itself, creating this whole like talking point, being like, "Hey, look at this." Because I think there's a lot of especially when they cover it in the news so heavily, it makes me wonder what else they're doing. But as far as the riots go, um, I mean, they're just foolish people being misguided and paid to do. I think, in my opinion, obviously, um, to have these brash reactions and create this chaos. For the most part, a lot of them obviously do have that concern and care. Other people just want to be part of the movement in this chaos, and they want to have these they want to feel like they're part of something big and some sort of times change when in reality these people really don't care about what they're doing, the society around them, or the culture of the people that they're going in it about. Can you not hear me? It's literally like right in front of my face.
No,
Okay, is that how's that?
So much better.
It's literally like I just had to turn it so it's sideways basically on my fucking head. Mm. Giggity. Um, but no, and so I think oftentimes it's just people trying to be part of something so they could feel instant gratification by showing up to these events because realistically you don't see these people out here trying to improve these communities on a regular basis or trying to find these circumstances. And personally, with these riots and these deportations, well, riots are unjustified. You're never justified to destroy a community in a fashion such as that. And the deportations are absolutely justified. Um, you're coming to this country. You're taking our resources that we've worked and gathered as far as taxpayer dollars, and you're coming in here and taking that without adding to it, with the exception of a small instance of you know labor forces and maybe some small circumstantial things, but for the most part it's a drain on the communities. Like oftentimes here in the Central Valley, you can't go to like an emergency room without like a 6 hour wait to be seen, unless you're obviously dying. But if you're feeling like just absolute trash, you can't go to an emergency room without it being an extensive wait.
Mm,
Like they overburden all of the systems, and I'm not just saying just Hispanic people. It's all these people from across the planet that just show up through that southern border.
Okay. 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 So you went a little bit more generalization than anything, which is fine. Primary triggers for the protests and riots for Los Angeles for June 2025. So 2025, the LA protests were primarily triggered by aggressive immigration and customs enforcement, so ICE. So, and the raids that were going there, they were targeting immigrant communities, and particularly in this case, there was Latinos in this scenario. Only in this scenario, I'm not saying that, not across the damn United States. So I hope everybody gets that through their head first. Um, it started around June 6, 2025. The raids and part of a broader administration for the United States government and immigration enforcement policy involved federal agents sweeping workplaces, schools, and churches, which local residents and leaders described as sowing fear. I get certain parts of that. They were saying they were sowing fear because in certain situations, there's a time for a show of force. There's a time for actually doing what you need to do to, secure certain people, or things like that. Because in all honesty, I get why the ice raids are happening. I get why they keep happening no matter what. It's because it's not the fact that there are immigrants here; it's the fact that they lost track of a lot of immigrants here that are violent, that
mhm.
cause general, for the general populace, cause harm to the general populace, things like that. Like, so you need to think about it like that. It's not. It sucks to batch them all up together, but the simplest solution was to get as many as you can, get them out, and then hopefully come back through the right way. Um, I'm not saying I'm a heartless individual in that standpoint. I'm saying the fact that because there's certain ones that came here to escape, you know, the possibility of, being sold off into trafficked and,
Mhm.
harmed, or deal with the drug cartels, things like that. People don't think about that most of the time when they think about immigrants while they come here. So that's why I want to put that standpoint out there as well. Um, what is
I
your
think if you're breaking the law, that you should have that fear. Like you shouldn't just be like breaking the law and then just walking around like casual, like
Oh
just
yeah.
strutting about, enjoying your thing, because then that's going to embolden you to continue to do other nefarious activities that could be ensue.
I agree with that. But what about those that don't?
Mm.
Ruined by those that do.
But I'm saying, what about those that don't?
So like what they come into the country illegally and then they don't do further crimes.
No, I'm talking about the ones that aren't the ones that are violent. I'm talking about the ones that aren't, that are actually escaping these situations
Mhm.
to get a better life, like they have in the past before. Because we all know one or two people that are, illegal immigrants, but they're actually good human beings. They don't do crime. They don't, sow fear. They don't do with drugs. They don't do with, aggressive natures. They're actually really kind people. They just need to get a better life because they have family and they're like, we want to make sure they're safe. What about those people?
I was gonna say, like, having compassion is a good thing to have, right? We all want to be compassionate to others and save people from, you know, the worst pits of hell on earth. That'd be, cartels in Mexico, the sex slave trade that's widely sexually. We have more slaves today in history than any time on earth, and most of them are actually sex slaves. Like any time in history, this is the most we ever had slaves. It's just not seen here in America because we don't have slaves, at least for IRS to see. But anyways, going back into the main topic, it's good to have compassion, but you cannot be blind to the other situations like you brought up where the other people that do come in with nefarious intent or malicious intent, they come in and now you don't know because if someone crosses the border, you don't know what this person's intentions are. It's the same thing like when like say you're at your house, a random person comes into your house, they could be running from someone, trying to get away from something, or they could be going in to hurt you. You don't know their intentions. A person that's basing themselves for survival, have the natural inclination for survival, they're going to assume the worst. So you're going to treat that person at the worst situation. So you're going to tell them, stop. You might have to fight them to get them out of your house, etc. You're not going to just welcome a stranger into your home. It's basically almost the same thing as entering a country. You're not going to just let the person in because you want to be compassionate. It's good to be compassionate, but you can't just allow that to be your final decision on the matter.
So,
Okay.
right, for me, the comparison was like a for a video game. This is a simple, very common conception is like say like Ark or whatever, Conan Exiles, Dune is the most recent one. You have your base, you have your supplies. You're not just going to let somebody show up into your base and take your supplies. That's going to be like, okay, this is an act of war. We're going to start fighting. So it's kind of like that circumstance. Now, if somebody's like, hey, comes up to your base, like, hey, can I get some stuff? Yeah, bro, here. Have a great day. But you're not. They're not entitled to the things that you've spent your time to gather and put together.
Okay. Okay. So have y'all seen anything, just from your own knowledge, that make it look like ICE is in the wrong on certain aspects? Not the whole total, picture, but like seeing like maybe that was a little too much.
Um, Personally, I do not think they should be sending the vast majority of them to what country was it? The prison they were
El
sending them to?
Salvador.
El
El
Salvador.
Salvador.
Because obviously not all of them probably came from there. So it kind of sucks that you're just taking them and then just bring them, just sending them there. That I don't agree with, but I don't know what they had to do to get the process started. To how do you, same with like they were talking about due process. I understand why people are upset that a lot of these people are not getting due process. But you know how many people that is to go through due process? They're going to be sitting here for years to get through the due process. And then while they're sitting here for years, we're going to be paying for their food, their supplies, the stuff, housing, all that stuff is through taxes. So now they're just living kind of comfortably because they're not coming from where else they were while they're waiting for that to happen. So they decided that this is the best course of action, whatever they thought was, and just sent them all there. I don't agree that they should have sent them there, and there definitely should not be just taking actual legal citizens, American citizens, to outside the country and just deporting them. Sadly, because it's happened a couple times now, and it's like I can understand maybe one or two gets mixed up, but when it gets to like 20 to 30 people, you're like, okay, what are we doing here? How do you not? If this person can obviously show that they're a citizen, if they've been proven afterwards that they're a legal citizen, they probably have documentation, paper, license, all that stuff. Easy look up, like, okay, you're a legal American citizen. Sorry, go back to where you know, came from, what state, city, etc.
Okay. Jimmy.
I mean, there's also a point of what's the word? A percentage of errors that's allowable. That people allow that in vaccines. A certain a number of what do they call it?
Margin of error.
yeah, margin of error as far as things that shouldn't be allowed inside the vaccines that we shouldn't put into our body that are lethal at a certain percentage, they still allow it. They're like it's an acceptable amount, whatever.
Mhm.
And so there you can't you can't have these expectations and at be 100% because it's human nature. There's going to be errors almost regardless of circumstances.
Yeah, you can only take so
And
many
and
precautions. Yeah.
and I would say those 20, 30 people that grand total out of how many hundreds of thousands at this point, that's a very small percentage. I'm not that upset about it. It's unfortunate, but there's substantially worse outcomes that could have happened at that point in time.
Okay. Uh, so I can accept the fact that there's human error because we all are human. Um, it sucks, but people forget the fact that ICE falls under DHS, so they have actually the right and authority to arrest and detain U.S. citizens if they are caught. I don't want to say this. If they are caught
Aiding and
impeding,
abetting.
impeding, not just aiding and abetting, impeding
Mm,
ICE from doing their job.
yeah.
Some people don't realize the fact of simply, blocking them from getting it to way or not unlocking a door or anything like that counts as that. So they have all right under every regulation to actually arrest and detain. Deportation for U.S. citizens, 100% U.S. citizens, they should not be doing. But that's where it comes down to that human error. Like, things get lost. And that's a lot of fucking numbers you're dealing with too at the same time of keeping track of everything. People don't look at that. So we're humans across the board. So you got to actually wonder how much of it is in that margin of error. And most people don't look at those numbers. Um, So let's look at how the protests went from LA to other cities.
Mm,
Um, LA obviously started out as peaceful protests. They gained numbers really fast. Um, and the LAPD kind of dropped the ball because it was time, it was manageable. The protest wasn't getting violent, anything like that. Then they went from peaceful protests, people voicing their opinions, which me, Jimmy, have we did our time in the military and we agree with peaceful protests, at least from what I stand for come from. I don't know, Jimmy. Jimmy, what about you?
What now?
I said
Stand protests and stuff.
like peaceful protests.
I mean, to me, I see people like holding signs as I'm driving places, and I'm just kind of like looking at the person with like, bro, why? It's already all over the internet. You don't need to be here. You're one person with a sign. Like, I'm glad this makes you feel good, but it's just kind of like a waste of everybody's time. You're making an eyesore on the side of the road. You're
I
wasting your
mean,
time.
when I say it like that, let me say it a different way. Um, do you believe it's okay to have peaceful protests?
Well, yeah, it's part of what we fought for. However, comma, when people allow these groups to become what would be the word to express violence at that point, be shaken up and rallied into a surge of just excitement and violence by screaming and throwing shit. Like it's that's when it becomes a problem. And then people are like, well, no, these are peaceful. No, it's as soon as people start throwing bricks and setting things on fire and flipping cars, it is not a peaceful
peaceful.
protest.
Nah, that's why I agree.
I agree with that. Like to the fullest extent. Just let's add on to the fact that I will always allow and not have anything be in the back of my mind about negative if somebody wants to do a peaceful protest. And some people don't realize the difference between a protest and a peaceful protest because a protest just in general is someone that starts on their point, starts on their beliefs, and it can go from just talking and just saying their opinions, everything like that. There's many protests going on all the damn time. You have BLM, you have, you know, everybody fighting ICE right now in different ways, just trying to do it the right way. There's there's pride, there's all these other things, and they're doing it. Some of them are doing it very peacefully. They have a right to. Some of them do the right thing, and most people don't know this. But you have to go down and get paperwork to do certain things too in public spaces and settings.
There's
So you have
bureaucratic
to get a
pathways for everything.
Yeah, there's a correct way to do things, and there's a ignorant way. So people think that you can just organize a group and just go do it. There's a right way to do it, and if you don't know what that is, go look it up because every town, every city is different on how to do it. So do it that way, and that's what my educational bit I want to have y'all out there know is that if you want to do this stuff, make sure you do it the right way. Like I said, most veterans don't care. We just like, yeah, we fought for y'all to have freedom of speech and do peaceful protests, so go for it.
As
Um,
you were saying though,
mhm,
blocking roadways, that
Mhm.
in itself is endangering people's lives, because if say
yes,
somebody has a heart attack and that ambulance can't get through, I feel
Mhm.
like everybody that organized that and is involved at that point should be slapped with like a manslaughter charge.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
I
There
mean, because at
there's
that point it's out of control and that's not acceptable.
Yeah, no, it's not. Like, I've seen a couple of, instances during these riots, and, one of them was, black woman, she's trying to go to work, and
I saw that.
she came across the whole blocking the streets, and she's just asking them very politely, "Can you please move? I have to get to work. If I don't get to work, I can't afford to live where I live. I can't, pay for my family, help, buy food for them, give them a roof, a bed, that kinda thing." And they kept refusing her.
The weird
And then
liberal hippie was just like, "Oh no, you're going to work." That's
yeah, she
so
said, "I could."
bad.
Yeah, no, she said, "I could lose my job," and he was like, "Oh no, lose your job?" And I don't know how like someone could have that mindset because
They're
it's like
compassionate.
yeah, you need to have like I said earlier, it's okay to have compassionate, but you have to think with also like a logical sense as well. And it's like that's you're showing like
I was
almost
1000% being sarcastic. I mean that in regards. This is these people
well, yeah,
that feel that they have no like carry on in life. They have no gusto. There's nothing that
yeah,
excites them, and so they're trying to search for that thing. And so
hmm
they're like, "This is going to be something I'm going to be a part of. I'm going to make a difference," even though they're being completely scumbag human beings doing certain things.
yeah. Well, like you said earlier, like I know when you were saying compassionate people, I agree. There's some people out there that they think they're playing the role of being compassionate, but then they allow their emotions and ego to consume them and not be compassionate. Because like that instance I just explained, you're not being compassionate at all. You're looking at this person and be like, well, too bad. And it's like, no, like it's one thing to try to get your point across. It's another to impede on someone else's, life.
And that's
It's
my whole thing. Is like you can do your thing. That's fine as long as you're not shitting on people while you do it. Nobody really gives a fuck.
yeah, that is true. Like you know, I consider myself. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but a very tolerant person. You know, some things I don't like, some things I will voice my opinions on. But like you said, the whole blocking of traffic, property damage, things like that. Um, it's I don't agree with that at all because that shows you have no care, you have no, rightful thought process in the first place.
Genuine.
hmm
No,
So go ahead.
there's only like a handful of things like groups in itself. Like I said, I'm pretty tolerant. Most people, I'm just like, all right, cool, you doing your thing. There's only like two groups of people that I'm abhorrently, what's the word, prejudice against, and that's child predators and rapists.
hmm
Outside of that, you do your thing. Like if you want to slap on like tree beard makeup and fucking go dance somewhere with other dudes, like you do you. That's your life, dog. But you can't force me to be like, that looks awesome because I might think it looks weird as shit. But hey, you're doing your thing. Fucking dance to your heart's content, Treebeard queen of the fucking dudes.
Yeah, do whatever you want to do that makes you happy. Just don't force it on me. Yeah, yeah, I hear you.
Exactly.
I'm about that completely. Now let's look at the damage reports. So
Mhm.
it's been estimated $20 million in property damage for the LA riots.
That's crazy.
And you know who's going to pay for that?
Taxpayers.
Yep, taxpayers are going to pay for that. And the bad thing is, you would think there's a higher toll number in arrest and detaining for that, right? What do you think what do you think the average arrest and detaining total was for that? You already know where I'm going with this. Go ahead.
Almost non-existent.
Yeah, I was gonna say low
Gavin Newsom's
percentage.
not gonna push for this. He doesn't. The dude's so slimy and corrupt. Like he's doing everything he can to abide by public people, by the public in this tribal mindset with a lot of individuals,
Hmm.
that he's doing everything in his absolute power to appeal to them. And so he's just like, oh, you want to do that? Hey, have at it. It's more power to you. Fight the man.
Yeah, you saw that
So
through the National Guard.
yeah, so they don't have an exact number in LA, but across the whole nation of the United States, 1,200 plus.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's radically
Right.
insane.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
1,200
little.
plus. When you think about how many people were rioting in LA, there was 1,000 plus in that LA alone,
Hmm.
Hmm.
and then across nation it was 1,200.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And there was actually a person that was actually shooting. I can't remember what city it was, but there was an actual guy, a gunman, walking around. He shot a few rounds. I can't remember if he hurt or killed someone, but the cops were looking for him. And even when they were asking the civilians, "Where is this specific person?" a lot of the people there wouldn't help to find this gunman, which is a wild thing because it's like if you're they're so adamant about gun control, but then they allow this gunman to just kind of run around willy nilly without, trying to take care of someone that's dangerous, obviously, because you don't want a person just running around shooting people.
The wrong side of the Boondock Saints.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's wild. It gets wild too because it got out of hand. At first, it was okay, and then it got out of hand, especially when cars are being flipped and burned. Buildings were being destroyed. It was getting out of hand. So.
So a lot of people ask, what was the purpose of President Trump sending the National Guard and then after that sending the Marines? It was because of the rioters, the fact that this has happened before where riots happen. I think was it Minnesota? Was it Minneapolis? I can't remember exactly which one
Kenosha?
it is. Yeah, Kenosha. There he goes. It's Kenosha, and he asked before, "Do we need to send National Guard to mobilize? That way, we
Mhm.
can help contain this." They said, "No, we don't need this. We can handle it." This time, he's like, "We're not playing this game. We're sending them. We're going to keep it controlled in some way, shape, or form." And then LA enforced a curfew at 10 o'clock at night. So the National Guard was sent out there to help control because LAPD fucking failed. They did. Um, from this is from other law enforcement as well, saying that they failed because you have a big city like LA, you have plenty of police officers and they know how to control a certain number of people themselves individually. So how do you go from peace protests to riots to losing all control
Mm.
and not having a failsafe somewhere in there? You're looking at, simple things like riot control teams, everything like that.
It doesn't always
Uh,
fall up to the PDs or the sheriff's departments in that regard, though, because oftentimes these people are being controlled by the mayor and the governance is put forth by the,
Mm.
I'm doing air quotes, you can't see it, the
yeah.
local authorities, meaning like your mayors, your governors, your whoever else is in charge of the counties and such, because these people are the ones that set forth the expectations to their law enforcement officers, and they go by those guidelines best they can. And if their boss, you know, is being told by the governor, let's say the mayor of LA, right? She's telling the captain of the police force, "Hey, these are my expectations. This is what your men will do, or I will take you from office."
Yeah, political games.
It's
Yeah.
yeah, and so it, they won't say that. I would say oftentimes in public discourse where it can be seen by everybody, but they will say it behind closed doors where nobody can point a finger later on.
Yeah, I get that. Um, but back to how I was saying it, it was they did that. He did that. He mobilized them because he saw how this happened before and then lost control.
Mhm.
Instead of asking, he said, "No, we're just doing this shit." Because he got criticized for not sending them, and he's getting criticized for sending them now. So I'm like, You can't win, so you might as well do the right fucking thing as best you can.
Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yep,
Rather,
exactly.
and like you said before, rather to have it and not need it, and than to need it and not have it.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
100%. Everyone wants to know why the National Guard and the Marines. National Guard, the way my mother even says this, National Guard and Army are president's personal soldiers because they get called up instantly and they get told, "Hey, you have to do this." They get mobilized super fast, and therefore the initial engagement. Marines because they were close by, and it's easy to move them. So there was 2,000 National Guard troops, and then on June 7th, followed by 700 Marines, totaling additional 2,700 Marines, totaling a total of 4,100 guardsmen and 700 Marines by June 18th. So that wasn't like, June 7th, June 9th, June 10th. They were all there. They were 2,000 there already June 7th. So usually there are people in that city, state, everything like that that were there, National Guard. Then they pulled from everywhere else. Then 700 Marines, they pulled from the closest base over there and sent them over there as well. Um, so the Marines were used to protect the federal buildings,
Hmm.
and National Guard was used to help contain the riots. So people think that that was just too much show of force. What do you guys think?
No, and like you said, the Marines were only there to prevent anything happening to the federal buildings. 'Cause like you said before, we witnessed this kind of thing. January 6th, he was portrayed as or being criticized for not sending in the National Guard, even though he asked beforehand. They
And was
said
denied.
and was denied. There's video documentation of them saying we fucked up. We should have told Trump yes, but they didn't. Um, so what happened was the riots pursued, and then people it was actually a mix. So some people straight up broke in themselves, and then actually video documentation of people being escorted into the building. So you had cops escorting rioters. I'm actually quoting that because quotation marks because they weren't really rioters if they were just being escorted by cops into the building themselves. There's a mix of that because there were some rioters that were doing it forcibly, and then there were some people just being escorted. Anyways, going back to the main topic though, um, yeah, it. I don't think it was like too much because you had them at like think of it like a perimeter, basically. You had the National Guard at a line, and they were basically telling them, "This is your point that you cannot pass. That's it. Stay where you are. Say whatever you want to say, but you cannot come over here this line." Marines were just the backup to the National Guard if they got past National Guard protecting the federal buildings. They weren't doing anything else besides that, just sitting on the fence of the federal buildings. So to me, that wasn't too much.
Yeah.
Jimmy?
I mean, I've been part of circumstances like that. No, it's not. They didn't go. What's their show of force wasn't extreme by any standard. As you said, they were sitting there, creating
Hmm.
a perimeter of protection, if you will, around these buildings, so they weren't further discourse zone in the infrastructure of the city itself. Um, and on top of that, it's not like they were going around with their MRAPs, kicking doors in, pulling people out of their homes with zip ties and bags on their head like the Gestapo. Like these were just a protective force. It wasn't an offensive like dissemination force, which it would have included a lot more CS gas, a lot more batons being swung around, people being zip tied and put on the ground and dragged off. That didn't happen. There were moments where LAPD was doing that, but that wasn't being done by our service members.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. If you let's see, Mayor Karen Bass. What's your opinion on her?
Her, yeah. It seems like she's doing a poor job. I don't know what her background is and like how I never really like I only know about her since because of like what's with the especially with like the wildfires that happened recently, and it was poor management on her. She didn't get like the resources needed. She's cut a lot of resources that the fire departments needed. So they had to cut people from the teams just to save money because they couldn't afford all these firefighters, and there was poorly mismanaged. Really, it was just a lot of. It's hard for me to criticize her from that. I guess is the only thing I can just go off of that. Really. Besides that, I don't know her. I don't know her political background. I don't know what she wants, what she seems to gain from this. Obviously, there's probably a lot of things behind closed doors that I just don't know about. But from first glance, it just seems like she's not good at her job.
Okay. Give me 1 second because you got a question. Doesn't the public have access to certain federal buildings or monuments? Do you need a permit for this? To just go there? No, most of the time you don't need documents or permits for this. But to protest there, you need to actually file a I can't remember what it's called. You need to file a document to protest there. So they get
Mhm,
approval. So there's also security involved. So they actually know then ahead of time that, hey, we're gonna have like, let's say 100 people to go to this monument to do a peaceful protest. The key word there is peaceful protest. So they do that, they sign the documentation, they get approval, and then they say, okay, cool, this is the dates, this is the time you need to do that. That way you can do this. And this also keeps the general populace aware so they know, oh, let's say what's a monument? Let's say like Smithsonian, things like that.
mhm,
Big Smithsonian. They want to do a peaceful protest because somebody did something wrong in somebody's eyes. Because, and let's be honest, in this day and age, somebody's going to be wrong in somebody's eyes all the time. So, like, say they have discoveries in Smithsonian, things like that, and then they want to protest there peacefully. So they let the general populace know that, hey, this is going on here. Just letting you know that if you come here, this is what's going to be happening.
mhm.
So they put it out there. That's the right way to do it, and that's why. Yeah, good question, one love. Yeah, Jimmy, back to you.
So yeah, no, this is kind of like bear into the topic. So Gavin Newsom is so rightfully corrupted that it bears down into all of the systems of which are integrated into California state. Um, from from the firefighters, the state ones, the wildland firefighters, not allowed to do their controlled burns to try to help mitigate, to not do any land clearing. Right? They stopped that. They cut funding for that so they can do certain things. There's a they refuse to do a lot of infrastructure maintenance and repairs so they can
Mhm,
allocate that money into other circumstances that may or may not be nefarious. I mean, there's a lot of it is conspiracy theory, but if there's smoke, there's fire, and if it don't make sense, then why?
mhm.
Like I.
Water reserves were being, not used properly or not maintained.
Hmm.
Like was it something about like what was it? Certain fish were endangered or something, so they weren't allowed.
There was a small fish that had
Yeah.
a mild endangerment due to a certain like damming of a
Mhm.
reservoir,
Yeah.
Okay.
and I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I mean, what about these homeless shelters that these dudes build on the side of a freeway? Where did that all trash and that toxic waste go?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Into
that's
the
true.
ocean?
Yeah, it does. All right. So, Mayor Karen Bass's criticism and her proposed solutions. So she criticized ICE and the raids, saying they were showing terror. Most political figures in California have said the same thing across the board, and saying they're showing terror in their ways. Um, but described and tagged as indiscriminate and fear-inducing. She criticized the deployment of the National Guard and the Marines as an overreach that escalated unrest. As we talked before, they really didn't show force as they, could be since their training and everything like that. They didn't show
Hmm.
force if you know anything about the military. As proposed, ending the ICE raids and urging peaceful protests and implementing a curfew to curb the vandalism, which she did implement a curfew at 10 p.m. that lasted for a week. She also called for federal, local collaboration to address immigration humanely and emphasizing economic recovery and community trust. Uh, Being someone of my own nature, I wouldn't trust a government official that actually stated that having people there to make sure the riots stop is acting in the right of me. That's just my own personal perspective because a government official that's wants the general populace to be safe is more important to me than, let's say, violent protesters.
Hmm.
but nobody sees it that way. Everybody sees it as the immigrants should have more rights, but people forget they're not U.S. citizens. Um, yeah, some of them have been played a bad hand of cards, but you can't make it every single one of them should be here when there's so many proper channels, so many different ways. There's the Asylum Act, things like that that they go through. But the Asylum Act, they don't have to pay for it. I researched like how much it was to do, immigration the right way, like legal way, and it's a pretty goddamn penny, you know. Then there's things like work visas, everything like that that help people come here to, work, make money, go back and apply for a work visa again to come back, or they can reapply for it while they're still here. You know, that there's different ways and different ways to come to the country the right way, which I know people when they come here and immigrants come here in the first place, it's not just to cause chaos. It's a lot of it is to make a better life for themselves because they hear America is the land of the free, and we have all these policies in place. We have police presence, everything like that to make the areas safe,
Hmm.
which they didn't have. A lot of them don't have back where they're from. So I get why they come here. The ICE raids themselves, for me, I'm a bit 50-50 on that because I believe there's a better way to handle it. Um, you know, but we're going to get into that in a second. Uh, what do you think about Karen Bass's statement?
Which one?
She's an
Uh,
ignorant puppet.
the spiel I gave, the criticism and proposed solutions, how she said she wanted to end the ICE raids and using peaceful protests, let them and implement a curfew and to curb vandalism. She also called for her federal and local collaboration to address immigration humanely and
Mm,
emphasizing economic recovery and community trust. My problem is economic recovery when it's $20 million worth of damage is fucking damn near far fetched.
yeah.
You know, what's your standpoint on that? Because this is a statement by her.
I mean, they've
Um.
they've got it somewhere in their pockets. Honestly, it's just whether they want to empty their own pockets to help this out or not. Realistically, because during COVID and such, they automatically they mysteriously somehow had $75 million of surplus taxpayer dollars, um, air quotes for that one, uh, just appear out of nowhere so people can get a COVID bonus
Mm,
in that regard. Like, so it's like, and then they continue to later on raise taxes further. So it's like, how are you raising all of these taxes? How are we paying $6 a gallon on gas, and
mm,
a vast majority of that is taxes? How is that the case? But then you guys still are like, I don't know where my money's at.
Yeah,
it's
it's
a lot of shadiness in it, definitely for sure. And California is one of the most. It's not only one of the most expensive states to live in, but it's also one of the most taxed states. Like you're basically losing like 50% of your income.
And it's the third largest economy on the fucking planet. How do you not have this money? It's because it's lining people's pockets. Like there's no, like, I'm not sure it's a conspiracy theory until it's proven correct. But
But how's that much money go into your pockets, but you don't see nearly even half of it come back out?
Yeah.
they've been working on the 99 since I was like fucking in the third grade. They're still working on that freeway.
that's uh that's ridiculous to say
That
the
bullet
least.
train costs upwards of three plus beyond like $3 or $4 billion, and they have 1,500 feet of usable track. They've pushed people out of their homes in Fresno. That I know Fresno specifically, that they had kicked people out of their homes. They're like, we're buying this, go away. And now these homes are vacant when this train is not being built. So it's like, where are you going to draw the line where you're lining your pockets, you're acting like you're doing this, and then you don't deliver?
It's the same thing with like the homelessness problem and all these charities you can do for donating to homeless or donating to cancer or charity events and all these things. There's a huge money laundering scheme that's going on with that.
10 cents on the dollar.
It's ridiculous. Like a lot of the money doesn't actually go towards the actual like contributing to fixing the problem. but they could fix it easily because they've proven that when I think it was
China, President Xi
so
Jinping came to
yeah,
town, and Gavin
yes.
Newsom's like, "Whoa,
Yep.
when you have guests, you clean up your house."
Yeah, so they cleared out the whole homeless problem instantly, took them off, and then as I went into it, I researched a lot of it. A lot of them were actually sent to like paradise islands, essentially. Like they were sent off to like the Caribbeans and just left there. They're like, "All right, here you go," and like follow
Fuck,
to a nice resort. I'm like, "Oh man, maybe I should went homeless." I wouldn't
that's
mind going
right.
to. I wouldn't mind going to a nice paradise island,
I
just
mean,
drinking martinis on the beach.
now I'm not sure how valid this one is, but I do remember hearing this thing for the I'm doing air quotes again, humane and safe deportation routes, that they had a self deportation clause where you show up to an airport being like, I want to deport myself, and they'll fucking charge a federal account and send you off to wherever the hell. That's like I said, that's a skeptic. I'm skeptic on that. I don't know how valid that is. So it could be
Yeah.
a thing. It could not. But
Here's
go
a
ahead.
quick question I was gonna say. I don't know if you do have the answer to this, Raider. So I've seen this a lot. A lot of the times, when we deport all these illegal immigrants and all this, a lot of Democrats bring up the point. They're like, "Well, now who's gonna pick your fields for your fruits and all this stuff?" Because now they're thinking cheap labor. So now, do you happen to know the information on that? Is that actually a thing? Like, are they getting paid like $5 an hour, getting paid wicked cheap labor for that kind of thing?
Out
So
here,
Yeah,
yeah.
here. Like, here, they've
um,
said all the time.
it's not like prison wage labor, but what it is
Under the table.
yeah, it's under the table kind of circumstances to an extent that is lower, but at that same regard though, like this dude doesn't have to claim like or pay taxes on
Taxes
these
and
yeah,
things
a
like
lot of these
that.
people are missing out on their wages, this, that, and the other. So it's a lot of loopholes that just kind of create it bogs down the system, and so you get these people doing these jobs for cheap, and then it's just like, okay, well, there's still what's the word? Inflation is still happening, but the job market is stagnant, and it's because of circumstances like this. Is because you're not having what's the word? Competitive hiring pools.
Yeah, yeah,
They're flooded, and so it's instead of having like employers compete for quality workers and
yeah,
employees, you have people just flooding everything, and they're just like, you're just a fucking number. Get out of my office.
yeah. Interesting.
Okay.
Okay. So I was yeah. Go ahead.
So from my own standpoint, yeah, like you said, they're not getting paid top dollar. They're getting paid a decent amount though. I know that for a fact. It's manageable and it's something that can help them, continue to pay what they need to pay for. Exact number, no idea. But my standpoint goes to US citizens across the board. Why don't they want to fucking work these jobs? You
I
know,
got
because most people look at it as not a luxurious life, not a life that they can support, a family, things like that.
yeah,
And I
it's
know a
true.
couple people that do it and they support their family just fine, but they also don't mind doing things like hard work.
Yeah, hard work. It is
You
harder
know,
and more intensive work. It's more
yeah,
physically demanding. You're
yeah,
on the
you're in the elements, so kind of if you know how to work in that, you know how to get through that, you know how to work your ass off and make it all good. And most people I know that have employees that work out in the fields of that, they kind of take care of them really well on certain points. Like they're like, hey, just here's some extra money because you worked your ass off for us, or here's, something of, fruitfulness, like uh, a product, things like that. So like crops, things like that. They're like, oh, we had extra. Do you want to take this home with you?
And
Things
I
like
feel like
yeah,
that.
that's human nature, unless you're like a fucking sociopath, to be like, these are my good. This dude is a good fucking worker. I'm gonna do what I can to keep him happy, so he keeps putting out that level of work. I feel like that's a human nature, unless you're some sort of like sociopath, like psychotic asshole, who's just like, fuck it, I'm gonna abuse him until he's gone.
so it's not like slave labor where you're getting paid $1 an hour or something
No,
ridiculous.
it's not
Okay.
like
They,
it's not like indentured servitude.
oh, that's
Okay,
what I'm
it's
saying. It's
not
not
like
like
that.
prison wages where they get
Yeah,
25
Okay.
cents, like,
Because
or
that's like a
15 cents an
China shop
hour.
kind of thing, like in China where they have like, the workers at the low end and they're getting paid $1 in a sweatshop somewhere. But Not like that here. That's good at least. Because I was wondering about that. I was like, so what? Are people just okay with like basically slave labor here? But no. So it's not like
To an
that. So that's
extent,
good. Yeah,
yeah,
to
like
an extent.
if like I said, in prison they kind of pay people like 15 cents an hour,
Yeah.
and they it's a whole circumstance. But for me, like the guys that did work hard and that they showed a willingness to try to improve their workstation and take care of the equipment, like I had them, like I had tried to put forth. Um, I would try to put in bonuses for them, and if not, I would take things. I'd snag extra food from the kitchen. I'd just go in there and be like, "I'm taking all of this," and they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "I'm feeding my workers. Is there a problem?" And they'd be like, "No." I'm like, "All right, have a great day." And so
Yeah,
sit
but
there, hand off a bunch of trays, and be like, "Sorry,
that
I couldn't do more."
but that makes sense for you because you're one of those people. Like, if other people are doing a good job and things like that, and they work for you, you're like, no, I'm taking care of them. Fuck everybody else.
Hmm.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's because there it's at that point, and it's a perspective of it's like it sounds bad as far as like this my crew, but it is especially well, it sounds bad in prison as a CO when you're saying this is my crew of dudes, but it's your workers. You want to make sure that they're taken care of, but you also don't. You want to do it to a point that you're not being taken advantage of. So you're not trying to bring in like gum or chewing tobacco or anything, cigarettes, because that just there's a whole psychological standpoint for they call it downing a duck that if you want to discuss, you can look into, and we'll have a whole topic on that at some point.
Okay.
Mind games.
So let's get
Back
back
on
on
topic.
topic here. All right.
ADHD.
ADHD is the thing, man. I like going down rabbit holes way too goddamn much. Uh, let's look at the. Let's look at. Do you want to do? What do you want to talk about right now, Jimmy?
The tortas.
Mm.
No, according to what we're talking about.
That was Spanish.
I know, but
Oh.
that's not what we're talking about. God damn it!
um,
Ugh.
really, I mean, it's just a lot of these issues that correlate from our infrastructure and our base of society, like it bleeds from the corruption of our government institutes. Like in all honesty, because then you get these simple infrastructure things that are neglected, that get pushed aside and stuffed into a closet and just ignored, and then when it comes to be a problem, it's a big fucking problem. The same thing happened with Camp Fire when that whole city burned to the ground because PG&E neglected it, and Gavin Newsom took a payout on that for like what $2 million.
Yeah.
Is it 2 million? I thought it was
I,
more.
it might be 2 billion. I might be wrong, but he now has a $9 million mansion somewhere in the hills, just living in his best life,
Isn't that fucking weird that they can get a payout from this and capitalize on it?
Hmm. It's
and
always
and not
interesting.
be indicted.
Exactly.
It's always interesting to see how their value increases dramatically as soon as they become like a governor, a politician in certain fields, even presidents.
I mean, who was it? Somebody, I forgot who said it, but they said if you make it in make it as a political figure for 2 terms, you're set for the rest of your life.
Oh yeah.
And I never put any fruit into that or thought into that or anything. And then I just look at the track record of everyone, like, because it's not just doing a good job, it's familiarity that
Mm,
makes them win a lot. Even if their policy changes, it's because people recognize that name and they're like, oh, I'm gonna go with that one.
yeah.
And then nobody pays attention to that all their policies have been fucking changed. And then they bitch about, well, it wasn't like this 6 years ago, when they were in office. So,
Because those
it's
policies weren't affecting everybody yet.
exactly.
There's a whole case in point with that, with the overtime and the tips thing, is that has a time frame on it. It's a timer on it. It's kind of a. I'm not one of those people that like. I side with Trump more often than not, but I'm not one of those people that are just like, oh,
Yep, I agree.
um,
I agree. Yeah.
I am very outspoken and vehemently against pretty much most of the Democratic politicians because there's grotesque amounts of corruption there. However, it's on both sides. Realistically, it's just theirs is a lot less abusive to the people. But that time frame on that, when the Democrats come back in and they're going to be like, well, we want our money, and then everybody's going to be like, are you fucking serious? It's at the end of his term, and so these whole tips and overtime cut, not being taxed, is going to fucking basically make whoever's next president, if they don't push through to get that resituated, it's gonna make them look like dog shit. And that was a genius move. That was a chess piece of checkmate for later on.
Okay. Let's see here. Jimmy, what year were you born?
90.
90. So you don't really. I know you don't. Then you don't have a real recollection of the 92 LA riots then, since you were 2 years old then.
I was shooting off OC guns, just these OC ghost cannons,
Oh,
32
so
clips of round mag pull triggers.
okay. So comparison from 2025 June LA riots and 1992 LA riots. 2025 LA riot protests share similarities with the 1992 riots, both driven by systemic grievances. So racial injustice in 1992 versus immigration enforcement in 2025 is how it's going to be labeled.
Mhm.
And marked by vandalisms and clashes. However, 2025 saw a strong federal military response. That's the difference from the National Guard and Marines being there compared to 1992's preliminary state-led response. 25, the rioters were smaller in scale, and that led to $20 million in damages versus the $1 billion in 1992.
Wow.
And
That
Yeah.
the
much.
rooftop Koreans.
Wait, what'd you say?
The rooftop Koreans during those Rodney King riots, you didn't hear
Oh,
about
yeah.
that? Them dudes sitting on the roof popping shots at motherfuckers coming to destroy their little cities?
No, I did not.
Dude, yeah, they had these like World War
Okay.
II era rifles, and they're Arasakas or some shit, and they're just on these rooftops smoking cigarettes, chain smoking, just fucking shooting people coming near their buildings.
Hmm.
Holy shit.
Yeah,
That's a
then
whole ass thing. Yeah, that's what they
I think
call.
I've
That's
heard of
why.
that before.
Yeah,
But
that's why
yeah.
there's that joke of the rooftop Koreans. You better watch the fuck out.
Okay. Well, fuck.
Eh, The,
Jesus
the, the,
Christ.
the citizens were able to defend themselves in this circumstance, and I think that.
I would hope so.
Well, I mean, this is California. It's illegal to protect yourself.
Yeah, welcome to Massachusetts, it's the same thing.
That's fucking weird to me, dog.
Oh, I
It's
know.
Like
illegal
a
to
like a
protect yourself?
Yeah,
Dude,
they
there's a
if so
homeowner that got sued in California and lost because a
yeah.
dude fell through her sunroof
Yeah,
trying to
broke their
break into her
leg.
house, and no, he
Broke
got
his
stabbed by some kitchen knives.
Oh, yes, okay, so I'm thinking of something else then. It was a different same kinda same situation. They fell through the roof, broke their leg, sued the owner, and won the case.
Well, trying to break into her house,
Yeah,
and it's like,
yeah.
That's
It's wild.
fucking crazy,
Yeah,
dude. Like, what the fuck?
yeah.
yeah,
The same with, like, Massachusetts, like, if someone is to break into your house, they want you to somehow escape rather than confront the intruder and to leave your house.
they're
But
gonna
it's
tell you
like
Yeah,
French instead of
not
John Wick.
but it's like 99% of the time, if they're breaking into your house, you're not gonna have an opportunity to leave the house. You're gonna be stuck
yeah.
in that situation.
Like, some people don't have 2 points of interest to their houses. Like, some people live
Yeah.
in apartments, things like that.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Oh, you
generally,
you're
they're
There's
not.
you're in your bedroom, and then someone breaks through your front door. You're in a hallway, and the only way to get out is through the 2 doors that are to the left and right at the end of the hallway, and they're at the front one, so it's like, "Okay, what am I supposed to do? Run past them, say, 'Don't hurt me'?"
there's a whole
Ugh.
segment on. I remember seeing there was. I don't know if it was like in one of our outstanding heavily blue cities, or if it was somewhere in Europe where they were saying that they just want your car keys. Just leave them by the door so when they break in, they can just take it and go and you're safe.
No, not about that life. Nah,
And
dog.
I'm like, no, as soon as they break into my house, they decided that my belongings are more valuable to them than their own existence, and that will happily be ended.
Yeah. You have the right to defend yourself and your property and your
That
family.
that 12-year-old kid, he's like, I just shot him, just he's just shitting on these dudes after he killed like three of them. I'm like, God.
Yeah, that's fucking wild, man. That's fucking wild. Yeah, I'm glad I live where I live. So far, everywhere I lived, it's been you can defend yourself just fine. Just if they have the back turn retreating, then stop. You know. But other than that, it's it is
Colorado
what
was
it
great
is.
until just the end of this year, or just the beginning of this year. That whatever political party took over, just bam, flip. As soon as those guys started getting violent, they're like, "We're going to take away your gun rights."
Yeah, yeah. Gun rights. We will be covering that sooner or later, actually, on certain things.
It's
Uh,
they meant like bear arms. Like if you were to somehow kill a bear, you're allowed to like have his arms. That's your right. Firearms was never the thing. That's insane. I'm totally being sarcastic for those who can't
Yes.
tell.
I know you're being sarcastic. Like, I wish you had the camera on so you can just do your air quotes.
Well, yeah, but I had to articulate that because everybody listening can't always pick up on tones.
Yeah. Yep.
So I'll say sometimes I'm stupid as
We
fuck,
we
and
had this conversation last week actually, or was
I'm
the week
so bad at
before.
picking up signs.
Text messages where you can never understand what K stands for because you can't see the expression behind it.
Huh? Okay.
Yeah, I can't stand that fucking shit, dog. Can't stand when somebody just sends big K. I still stand on that hill. I die on that hill. What's y'all's opinions on how Trump deemed the drug cartels as terrorist organizations?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
1000%. You're not going to sit here behead families and murder dozens of people for the sake of financial gain and influence in a negative light in a nefarious fashion, and then sit there and expect people to not think that you're a terrorist group when you're using terror tactics to its teeth,
Mm.
Yeah. First
Terry.
off, let me say something real quick, Jimmy. You fucking message me K one more time, I swear to God, I'll lose my shit. Now, now, yeah, I agree with that because drug cartels have been running rampant for fucking ever.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They run rampant in the U.S. They run rampant in other countries. They run rampant. Let's say Mexico is the most well known ones. You know, it's ridiculous how they can just get away with so much shit. Yeah, you catch a few high ranking members every once in a while, but you don't get to see like the mass, arrest of all of them and destabilizing them and actually, taking them apart. Takes fucking
Yeah,
damn near decades to even get close to one or two of them.
Hmm.
So I'm just like, it's ridiculous how they
I
can't stop that.
I played Mercenaries. I understand how it works. That was such a good game.
It
You're
was.
hunt you're hunting down the whole communist tier of power, fucking through the whole tree by tree, branch by branch. It was fantastic.
Yeah, that was really a good fucking game, honestly. I just haven't played a game like it in a while. Um,
The graphics are so bad.
the graphics.
They're so bad.
But yeah, what is y'all's takeaway from this? And Jimmy, we do this with everybody. Ask me and Savage some random fucking questions, dog.
What kind of effects do you think that these artificial intelligence psyopses are having on the population for, like, the Bigfoot things and all that are just going out there throwing out all this information and this media is in a fashion that's wild and entertaining.
I think, from my standpoint, entertainment wise, it's funny every once in a while. A lot of them I don't like, but
Good.
that's just because they keep getting flooded with them by certain people, aka Jimmy. Um, like every time there's one that comes up, he just has to fucking send it to me in multiple different perspectives and fashions and different apps. So I'm just like, he don't even use these apps. He's sending them to me just to do it because he knows it annoys the hell out of me.
I have one in the chamber to send. It's really good.
Oh my god, I can't stand you. But for the intelligence factor of it, I think it could be used. It could be deemed a very useful tool and
Hmm.
weapon in the future if they, tune it in a little bit more.
Yeah. Uh, it's gonna be a mixed bag, really. It could be used for good and used for bad, And obviously, when you see these videos, you can tell they're fake. They're not real. But
Yeah, I don't.
at some point, it's gonna cross the line where it seems real. Like I've seen some videos where you're like, and then you see, a sixth finger, and you're like, oh, okay, that's fake. Or like, something doesn't quite mesh well with the environment, etc. Uh, but at some points, stuff is gonna come up that looks way too realistic, and then you're gonna be questioning everything at some point. You just be like, "Well, did that actually happen?" Then you have to go in a rabbit hole and just find out if it did or not, and eventually, hopefully, find the right answer. But it could be used for either good or bad, and typically, it leans more towards bad. Sadly, because that's the nature of human reality. When we get something that could be used that's for good, people tend to abuse it, and use it for bad things.
Insulin. There we go.
You say insulin?
Yeah, they were fucking the people buying like that shit and then charging the medication like substantially higher than it needs to be. Shit like that.
I mean, that's most medications that's actually needed, not
A-
just, you know,
AIDS
people that want it.
medication. Um, the guy that invented Lululemons, that was kind of fucked up but funny.
I haven't dove down that rabbit hole yet. I think I'm going to, though.
Well, that
I
dude
don't
was
even know what
super
that is.
racist.
I mean, it happens. I know there's a lot of racist people out there that have power that shouldn't, but, you know,
Well, to be
it's
fair, they caught on so quick. So the dude he created Lululemon for the sake of it. Asians have typically, stereotypically, have a harder time pronouncing their L's,
Okay.
and so he was like, they're going to be saying "ruru ribbon."
that's really fucked up.
And why are you guys laughing? This is not a funny circumstance.
And
I
all
can't
right,
help it.
so I have a story. So I grew up with a stepfather that was Chinese.
God,
When I was younger, he was an awesome dude, and he was himself was American. He was born in America. Oh, then he came
ish.
over. He was born in America, and then raised here, where his mom and dad came from China. So they had a hard accent. So she could not pronounce my name at all because my name is Reese. That's my first name. So she could not pronounce her R's. So it'd be East when she pronounced my name.
Risa.
So it was always funny to hear that. So that's why I'm laughing, because it's like I get that, because it is true. But it is sad to say that a lot of times people that create things, you're gonna see some dark things that you wish you hadn't like learned about in the past. This comes a lot with like World War II, Operation Paperclip.
Yep.
That was
Yeah.
where they
Unit
took
731.
Nazi scientists that were used on both our side and for the Russians. We just took them and we're like, you live with us now, and we're going to use you, and you're just going to live with
You're gonna
in
live
our.
with me now. Fucking
But
Goonies.
a lot of the times we use and abuse even the darkest things if we can gain something from it.
Yeah. All right. Savage.
Yes, sir.
Choose a question at Jimmy that you might be curious about.
Okay. So you and Raider here both served together, right?
We
Okay.
didn't say we were in the same unit or hospitals or anything like that. We just
We
Okay.
came
met in
through core
training.
school. Yeah, we met in
Uh,
training.
okay.
We weren't together like that.
Don't lie to him like that.
The
My
showers.
I'm
feelings
out.
are precious.
You're a power bottom.
I am not.
Okay. So, how many years did you serve, Jimmy? And
I
thank you
did.
for your
I did
service.
5.
Okay.
Yeah, we stayed in touch the whole damn time. Surprisingly, actually, why
Yeah,
am I friends with you?
because you like being treated poorly.
Sometimes. Sometimes it's a great time. You never know. It's entertaining.
Valid.
Yeah.
Well, that and let's see. From Virginia after Texas, I came down to Lejeune, and that's where we ended up hanging out again.
Yeah.
Mm.
And to be fair, you were in Lejeune when I was staying in Norfolk, and so it was just a 2-hour drive.
Yeah, it's true. You did come down and visit and hang out on the weekends.
Yeah, I had to check out the Driftwood.
God damn it, that fucking place, man. Oh, it was a staple. That place and Toby's, everybody knew where they were all the
Did,
time. I'm just like, y'all know
I
there's
got
other stuff here, right?
I got Katie Morgan, that porn star that did Zack and Mary Make a Porno. I got
Yeah.
her to sign my titties for free.
What, you think you're better than me?
Yeah, were you signed by a porn star MILF lady?
No,
Hmm.
no. Don't really plan to be either, you know?
I'm gonna have Bridget the midget attack you.
I don't have a problem with anyone that's a midget or a little person, you know? I have a problem with that at all, you know?
Now,
I
what
don't have
what
fear of them.
is that the politically correct term now these days? I don't
I
know
think
what
little
the.
person's the correct word. I'm trying
Okay.
my damnedest to learn this stuff.
I don't know. That's
Trying.
why they call mini me a small person, I guess, and like.
And it's something, man. I'm like I said, I grew up in the '90s, and we just called it how we saw it. So you know, it's
Yeah, but there was no hate behind it, and that's kind
Yeah,
of like
no.
what's the issue with nowadays is that everybody wants to find this false maliciousness behind everybody's words when there's not a lot of hate always involved in it.
Yeah. I mean, Savage said it a while back, and he keeps saying it all the time. Funny's funny.
Yeah, funny is
Yeah,
funny.
You know, that's why
Well,
I think that's why I keep your ass around. Actually, that's why I keep you around because you just deliver things in such a manner, and I just makes me laugh, makes me angry first, then it just hits me. I'm like, that's funny as fuck.
that's usually what happens.
Yeah.
because with a lot of comedy, there's a hint of truth behind it.
Yes, there is.
So that's why you find it funny. And if you're, and it goes across the range on all topics. So it's at the end of the day, you just keep it as a joke and that's it. And you move on. You don't keep on it. You don't make it more serious. You just leave it as a joke. That's it.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right.
Have you rated to Atomic Tom's? I don't know if you've done that before. He's an awesome dude.
Who you want to go?
Uh, Atomic Tom's. I've known this guy since I've started streaming. Like I've known him for a long time. Let
Comic
me.
Tom's?
I'll just put it in the. Or I put it in chat and Twitch. Yeah, yeah. I've known him for quite some time. He's always got a smile on his face. He's always an awesome dude to hang around with.
Put a smile on his face.
Oh yeah, he's always smiling, giggling, and all that kind of stuff.
All right. As well as always, everyone, thank you so much for showing up and giving us support and having your questions and interacting. It's a great time. We appreciate you. We thank you. And I hope y'all have a fantastic night. If there's anything y'all want to talk about, shoot it in the messages, shoot it in like the comments of anything we do.
So
We go through
American.
everything. What did you just say?
You said shoot it there, shoot it here. No, just send us a message on what you want to talk about.
You know, I say how I talk how I talk, man. I'm not changing that for nobody. So yeah.
Typical American.
Yeah, it is typical
It
American.
is
Y'all
American.
have
It's
a
the
great one.
American way.
Bye.
See ya.